Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Tuesday, November 26, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first two cards in our 5-card spread? First two cards we are starting our day off with today are King of Pentacles in its reversal, in combination with our Six of Wands in its upright. Do you recall what the cards that we ended our reading with yesterday? I'll bring them back up to speed because this is entirely a continuation of yesterday's reading. So you'll recall that what we saw yesterday, moving into the final triad that we had in relationality to the final spread, was the Page of Swords in its upright, Knight of Pentacles in its reversal, High Priestess energy. So a lot of this work of introspection right now, a lot of this channeling into the higher self. But it's hard, it's difficult, because it feels very energetically confrontational to a certain extent. So, and it's having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. We saw this yesterday. Feminine working through a lot of that feeling of frustration, having that feeling of channeling frustration in positive, productive ways, right? This is a little bit of that energy that feels valid. It's not, and I have to point this out, frustration does not move you away from your higher self. Frustration does not necessarily move you away from your higher self, as long as energetic frustration is not something that is trying to protect the ego, but it is frustration in relationality to something that is integral, right? So we see even now that this is having a different impact, because for a lot of the feminine energy right now, that ability of finding a way of taking something that feels frustrating, putting it somewhere productive, right? That's not easy. It feels like a conversion. It feels like being like, this is what I would like to do with it, but instead I'm going to put it over here. Right? It's like, it's moving. It's like literally like channeling energetic frustration into a place that feels like it is positive, right? That feels like it's energetically productive. So for a lot of the feminine energy right now, that's doing a lot of that work in focusing on what feels beneficial instead of just amplifying that feeling of frustration. For masculine, this has to do with that modality of navigating. I told you, a lot of inner child healing that is happening right now for masculine energy, specifically and particularly if this is masculine energy, recognizing and identifying. I'm seeing two different modalities here. Either a sense or space of seeing the past version of self and having some notes for the past version of self, like wanting to go back and give them some notes. I want to point this out. Inner child healing does not mean that you want to go back to the 6-year-old version of the self and heal it. Inner child healing could be if you thought that you were like a goofball like a week ago. Like if you're looking back at yourself a month ago and being like, oh man, like that is also inner child healing. It's whatever version of the self that you look towards that had a sense of naivete that you wish you could come into a space of information upon. So we see even now a little bit of that energetic frustration that may be happening right now. For masculine, maybe more put in that space of feeling the frustration of something that is outside of one's own sense of ability to control or change. And that's either coming through the vector of the past self, because the masculine's like, I can't go back to that past version of self and tell them the thing that I know now. Or this is the masculine energy feeling the energetic frustration in the present and recognizing and identifying that we do everything that we do. And then there's always that catalyst of possibility of what we can't energetically control. So we see even now, this is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy, working through the same energetic lesson, which is how do you navigate frustration? Continuing to get, now this is having a different impact right now across the frequencies. For the energy deep within divine union and the energy coming into, for the energy deep within divine union, a lot of this work that I see is the amplification of showing someone what they mean to you or what they see that they can't necessarily see within the self. And that's heavy, right? We see even now, because there's a little bit of that self-doubt that I see as reflective there. Like, there's a little bit of that doubt of the self that's occurring. But this is also the energy that amplifies and says, if you doubt the self, it's not because you're energetically doubtful. It's because you put yourself through, like, it's because you it's like quality control. You know what I mean? Like, I see a lot of this energy, like amplifying and almost saying to one another, your doubting of the self is your greatest feature. Because you don't just blindly move into something and say, I'm energetically perfect. You're questioning yourself every step of the way. You got notes, right? You got notes. And so even in that modality here, I see that these are energies that are giving each other confidence in the wake of their own doubts and fears. While for masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, a lot of this work is coming through in, I told you, the movement of the stability of something moving into a more stable place, but the argumentation in terms of how that will go about. There's some pickiness that's occurring right now for energy coming into divine union. But like, I can see even now that sense of pickiness, right? Like sweating over the energetic details to a certain extent. It feels very disorienting because the energy is recalling spaces or places where in the past they couldn't even navigate a conversation in that way because they were like too busy having to work out fundamental principles in relationality to partnership. While for masculine and feminine right now in separation, I just keep seeing a lot of energy and separation, making new energetic connections under the most like odd of circumstances. I just see the energy being like, this is a weird time, like this is a weird time, but this is also the energy and separation that is recognizing one another in that sense or that space of making the best of something, right? And that is having a different impact on masculine and feminine, much like I described, that is occurring in relationality to how the energies are navigating that. The feminine channeling a lot of that frustration into something that feels productive. The masculine leading forth to feminine in a space of not building into the artifice of the false sense of self, but the authenticity of the true self. And I feel like there's a lot of that energy here. And I have to stress this. This is the escalation point of those two cards that we ended yesterday on prior to the High Priestess, which is that Page of Swords energy in combination with the Knight of Pentacles in its reversal. This is just an expansion point upon that. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, I like it, Tower in its reversal. Remember some of that heaviness that I spoke about? The heaviness that you're bringing up in the comments in relationality to the density that we're feeling right now because of this retrograde cycle. Moving with intentionality, right? Taking that slower approach to a certain extent. This is the energy that is building toward, I see a lot of energy right now in separation, moving towards one another in a very slow fashion. Why? Because a lot of this energy moving towards one another in a slow fashion, when you're building into a pathwork of prioritization, when you're moving towards a pathwork of purpose, you move with more energetic trepidation because you're more cautious in relationality to not damaging the work of the self that they've made in the progression of being in separation, right? I see even now there's been some energy right now in separation that's healing. They're not looking at separation, and I need to point this out. Separation is not like a demarcation point. We find ourselves across these frequencies. So for a lot of the energy in separation, that sense of finding the self, that sense of moving towards pathwork, this isn't energy that feels like they're in a modality of waiting. This is a lot of energy that is proceeding forward right now in that sensor space of making the best or doing what they desire with the hope of aspiration of coming into energetic connection, but not that need, not that like need or like that fun, like that searching feeling, right? This is energy that is moving towards partnership with a sense of hope, but also with a reliance of the self in the process. And for masculine and feminine energy right now, I just keep hearing slow and steady as it relates to some of the new energetic connections that are forming in this modality, because this is the energy that is looking towards something, building into a partnership that stabilizes, like that continues to build forth in that same architecture of stability, rather than feeling like it's taking someone, as like moving someone back into a place that they're trying to move away from. So there's a lot of this work here. And I want to say, it's compassionate, right? It's intimate. It's slow. While for masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're effectively seeing right now, this is why this may be leading to a little bit of like energetic argumentation. But a bit of this argumentation that we're seeing right now for the energy coming into divine union, it is the best argumentation possible, because it's not an argumentation as it relates to the fundamental aspect of what the partnership is. It's more about the amplification of how one is going to handle the recognized density of the partnership, the reality of the weight of the partnership, that is allowing for that sense or that space of like I want to say like argumentation, but argumentation that feels affirming, because it's not about arguing about whether something exists. It's arguing about, it's like sweating the small stuff to a certain extent. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within divine union, this is a lot of confidence building. This is a lot of energetic reassurance. This feels like a very like this retrograde cycle. It's like slow. It's like it's just taking one's time, moving with a lot of that like intentionality, right? And so we see even now that ability or that recognition of how it's experienced right now. Feminine is just trying to get things done. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. It may be a little bit more difficult for masculine today, because again, some of this masculine energy feeling the weight of the slowness and overly internalizing it, remembering that it's not being created within the self, it's potentially happening around the self. Like this is the masculine energy potentially struggling with the density of the energy or the space of it, and fearing that it's something that's happening internally instead of externally. Now, fourth and fifth card in our spread before we start moving into clarification. We've got here our Temperance card in its upright, and we've got here our Eight of Cups in its upright. This card, this Temperance card in its reversal, if it looks familiar, is because we started our reading with that card yesterday. So this is a lot of continuation on the theme that we saw yesterday, a lot of that continuing conversation to a certain extent. And this, I knew this Mercury retrograde hitting in the afternoon yesterday is like that wall. It's like right into the fog, if you will. Because a lot of that sense or a lot of that space, it slows things. Like I told you that this is like one of those slow Mercury retrogrades. It's difficult if you're trying to move more quickly within it, right? If you're trying to do something quickly and everything feels like it's slowing down, what's it asking you to do? Take a different approach. If moving quickly through something isn't working, taking a different approach. And a lot of this work for masculine and feminine, this could be articulating the frustration as it relates to energetic obstacles, right? But what's the beautiful thing that occurs when we share our obstacles with one another? That ability of perception, that ability of recognition, right? That ability of being able to get another person's perspective on something. This is a lot of that work that we see that moves into a recognition of what one feels that one can change within the self versus what one is externally navigating, right? And I can see even now, like a little bit of that, like introspecting that's occurring right now for the energy deep within divine union. Like this is a lot of that work that we're effectively seeing that requires or allows for that space of being able to, I want to say, like, get energetic advice, taking those notes. I see even now a lot of that energy being like, would you like a suggestion? Can I offer some energetic advice? Because there's a little bit of that like take or leave mentality here in relationality to processes that feel like they're like, and I told you, this is the beauty and the gift of the retrograde cycle. The retrograde cycle is not here to mess up your flow state. The retrograde is here to prove to you what the difference is between a groove and a rut. Sometimes you don't know it until you slow it down and you move back towards it, right? Now, for masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union, this is all about timing. I see that there's potentially a moment where I'm hearing like masculine and feminine both holding something preciously, but the conversation being, what do you do with something precious? Do you move very quick with it? Do you run the ball down the do you run the ball down the do you run the ball down down the field, or do you take it very carefully? Do you move it with a lot of intentionality? And so I see even now that a little bit of that space, this is the energy that's doing the same exact thing as the energy deep within divine union, but they're learning how to do it, which is that ability of navigating and negotiating, wherein you might be feeling oppositional in desires as to how to navigate something, but in the collaboration of finding what works, you're building deeper into the heart of the energetic union. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in separation, slow and steady wins the race here. I just see a lot of this energy right now. There's new energetic connections that are forming right now. I see them. There's new energetic connections that are forming. They feel positive. They feel bittersweet. There's a lot of that anxiety here. There's a lot of that concern. Why are we seeing the anxiety and concern? Because it can be very challenging when you're in separation during the retrograde periods, because sometimes that feeling of the past energetically returning, feeling some of that similarity. I'm going to say it again. The past that you did not desire, don't let it change who you are. Let it inform you and let it vindicate and let it continue to allow you to be refined in one's own energetic choices. We are not defined by our past. We are refined by it. We are not defined by our past. We are refined by it. That is the mantra right now for the energy in separation that is working through some of this, because I see even now that a lot of this contemplation, these energies are building into new partnerships by unpacking the difficulties or the hurdles of the past connections. That's triggering. It's not to be, it's expected that something about that space creates a little bit of this like the wound. But again, the wound that is reopened is often cleansed. So we see even now that a lot of that energy isn't poking at energetic wounds of the past for the sake of returning back towards the place that caused those energetic injuries. There's a little bit of this cleansing process that I see that's occurring right now in being able to come through something and articulate and almost have someone that you energetically meet and say, I feel that too. I've experienced that too. You know that wasn't your fault, right? You know that you're stronger than you appear. You know that you may have over-internalized something there, right? So we see even now like a little bit of that anxiety, like that ability of articulating through it instead of letting it in, like dwell, like sit within us. Like it feels restorative because it's a moment and the modality that we recognize that we're not energetically alone in our journeys, even when things are difficult. That often those difficulty points, the things that make us feel most alone, that's what unifies us. because we've all effectively or energetically shared that. So long as we are able to be open to experience it and to articulate it to one another. A lot of that, like letting go, if you will, that I told you can feel like the ickiness of having to talk about something you don't want to talk about, but then also feels restorative as you do so, and you recognize that you're not solitary in it. Continuing to get clarification between our King of Pentacles and our Seven of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our King of Cups. Look at this transition that we have here. Do we see this? And I see even now that for a lot, and this is some heavy work right now for masculine energy particularly. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Look at this. What's happening right now for a lot of the masculine energy? The authenticity that is required to build an open, like a connection with feminine. That in itself feels energetically triggering to masculine. Masculine kind of working through that old path work that said, like the past version of self that said, no, I can never just be open and honest to feminine. I can never just be open, emotionally expressive to feminine. Like there's a lot of this oppositional point that I see that is happening right now for masculine, like the struggle between the ego, right, and the inner self. Now the beautiful thing is when we do that type of work, right, like when we're moving with authenticity and integrity, the ego acts as an energetic shield, right? The ego acts as a healthy energetic shield. It's good, bang, boom, 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 good. It's working, you get to be like Cap, but when you allow the energetic shield to override, right? When you allow the energetic shield to override, it creates like that feeling of like an automaton, like something that you're hiding within that's destroying everything around you in the process, right? And so we see even now that a lot of the masculine energy in separation is like, they're saying to me, like working out how to carry your shield, right? Like working out how to carry the energetic shield, which is that space of being like, I can't lose it. I need that. Like I need to carry that. It's valuable. It helps, but not creating a space that you can't be seen behind it, right? That's hard. This is a lot of that work, right? And so we see even now that even some of those connection points that masculine may be having to feminine right now, may be talking about those moments being like, yeah, my shield, I've had some moments, my shield just went kind of bonkers. But even here, even in the space, like, do you recognize in that moment that you can say, like, I realize that occurred. That moment, and this is a lot of the feminine energy I see going to masculine being like, I was not strong enough, and the feminine saying, sounds to me like you've become stronger. Sounds to me that articulation, that one's own ability to recognize what was that, and that's what we talk about the difference between a rut and a groove. Your own ability to ascertain where to place your energetic strength is your highest virtue. Because that is not something that you feel validated or you feel like you have to validate the space of that, but being introspective upon it. Going through that internal journey. I see even now a lot of these intimate bonds that are being being created right now, some of these new energetic connections that have a lot of contemplation towards them. I can almost hear some energy in separation going, I can't believe I said that. Like it's a little bit of that, but that authenticity, like a little bit of that modality here, it feels cleansing. While for feminine, a lot of this modality may be feeling more difficult because this is the feminine potentially articulating to masculine their own experiences. Feeling that frustration of what past connections of masculine tried to bring forth to them instead of being considerate of what the feminine might be desiring, right? So we see even now, like a lot of that articulation of the feminine being more energetically protective is almost like the feminine saying to the masculine, I can be adaptable, but my adaptability is a gift that I bequeath upon the energetic counterpart that shows me that they appreciate who I authentically am and does not require it of me. That's a very nuanced that's very nuanced. That's a very nuanced energetic lesson, right? But it's one that the feminine is articulating via the emotional energetic connection that they're building forth with the masculine, right? It's really nuanced. Continuing to get clarification for the energy moving deeper into divine union. This is why I see so much of this energy now maybe moving into, like, this is why I see so much of the masculine wanting to move with a lot more rapidity than the feminine right now, because I can see a lot of the masculine being like, I've got it, like I've got it, but being like that sense of I got it is the masculine feeling the security and the stability of the self in relationality to who they are, right? And this isn't the masculine energy coming into divine union that looks outside of the self and says, if I have that, I will be whole. If I have that achievement, I will be who I need to be. This is the masculine energy saying, I'm coming into that because I've found that within the self. And in there, even here, we see that that's not a space of the masculine feeling energetically like perfect. But this is the masculine energy that is prioritizing the energetic connection that they build with those around them, right? I can see a lot of this being a moment of contemplation for masculine, because this is masculine energy coming into divine union, looking back at past versions of self and saying, dude, your priorities were like so out of whack. Like your priorities were so out of whack. But that's the gift that we have when we move deeper into our own journeys. We can look, and this is why I'm going to say, if you've got notes for yourself, masculine, hold that. Don't get too caught in the grief of the past version of self. Build into the love and appreciation of the present self that can look back on the past self and say, that person didn't know what they were doing, right? Our journeys do not require us to be perfect. They require us to be accountable and understand. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, that level or degree of authenticity is why I see so much energy moving with stability and security forward right now, because there's a lot of confidence here, right? There's a lot of that energetic confidence that I see is occurring right now for masculine coming deeper into divine union, because not like the thing I see the energy saying, the thing I used to run away from, I am now ready to hold. The thing that I used to energetically fear, I am now ready to incorporate within myself. And that is the healthy partnership, right? That is the modality of the masculine saying, I'm not moving away from myself into coming into healthy connection. I'm finding myself in the process. That's why the masculine's like, let's go. While for feminine energy right now coming into divine union, this is why the feminine energy is like, slow down. Like, slow down, like nice and easy, because feminine energy becomes conscientious when they see too much energetic turbulence in the masculine. Feminine energy often in a state of recovery from masculine that moves too much through those modality points, right? And so this is the feminine that almost looks to masculine and says, if this is energetically serious, if this bears that sense, then the consistency throughout it will be further edifying that it is energetically real, and it's not just you being caught in a feeling, right? Because this is the feminine that works towards that sense or that space of the hope of the consistency of the masculinity's emotion that doesn't feel like that sense of volatility. While for masculine and feminine coming deep within divine union right now, this is a lot of that modality of appreciation. And so much of that work, I can see even now, there's that questioning of the self in the process. So this is a lot of the energy I see even now, just giving each other that energetic courage, giving each other that sense of recognizing and helping one see. Like, it feels to me like that is the energy that continues forward with clarity. Because even when something feels like it's unclear, because you have the counterpart there to give, to remind you of what that intention is. Continuing to get clarification between our Six of Wands in combination with our Tower in its reversal. What do we got here? One card to clarify, we've got here our Seven of Cups in its upright. A lot of choices right now. I told you there's something very expansive that's happening right now in relationality to, and this is why I want to say even now, like these retrogrades, I know they can feel frustrating. Recognizing an obstacle can be really energetically frustrating. But if we don't allow ourselves to feel bogged down by the energetic obstacle, but rather confront it with a sense of possibility, with a sense of curiosity, with a sense of introspection in relationality to our own pathwork of purpose and how one chooses to move through it, that's where we see that these can be exceptionally expansive moments, as my ring light goes crazy, exceptionally expansive moments, because what they effectively allow us to do is innovate, thinking about something new, taking a new approach, having a new possibility brought forth to us. Oftentimes, it's only in some of those moments that we slow something down that we can recognize and identify a better way of energetically doing something. So we see even now that ability of doing so for the energy right now, deep within divine union, it's building forth with one another in relationality to the energetic obstacle and what those approaches will be to navigate. While for the energy coming into divine union, I see that something about the picky, there's pickiness here. There's pickiness, right? Like there's pickiness that is happening right now that is effectively the amplification of that work. But I have to say, that's why I see even now that a little bit of that argumentation has to do with the sense of the feeling of relief or release that the energy is having within that construct. Because if this is the energy that's like, sweating over the small stuffs in relationality to how they're going to move forward, this isn't a space of them arguing about what something is, right? We talked about the fact that there may have been some energy, especially during that Taurus full moon, that fell into separation because one person was like, this is heavy. And the other person was saying, I refuse to hold it with that same weight, right? This is the energy that's intentional. And in the moment that they are intentional, a whole wealth of opportunities and possibilities spring forth in relationality to how to approach something and what they're going to do moving forward. Masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, feeling the sense that anything, and I want to say this right now, the way that you carry the words, anything could happen, you're not allowed to say that in a negative way unless you also say it in a positive. All right? That's my rule for today. Okay? Are you listening to me? Are you listening to me? That right now, if you're sitting there in this quagmire and you're saying, I don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. You're right. But that goes positively too. Don't let the possibility of different things, of multiple, like if you're thinking about multiple outcomes of things right now, I want you to remember that you have to allow in the vector of what is also positive. So this is my rule today. If you think about a bad thing today, I want you to counter it with a positive thing as well. All right? I want you to move that to away from what is happening to anything is possible. Anything is happening. Okay? Don't let yourself get caught in the density of a moment that makes you question. Allow it to build that space of security, of possibility. Now continue, and even here, some of that work, I feel like the healing that's occurring in some of these new energetic connections that are forming has to do with a bit of that change of perspective, with a bit of that ability. What happens when we share something with someone and they say, it's funny that you took that lesson from it because I took a whole different lesson from it. It's so funny. I don't think, I know you're saying that that's what you think happened, but, from my perspective, it seems to me like something else happened, right? That modality of being able to arrive into a space of being able to see something in different ways, it can feel expansive because it's the reminder that sometimes when we're caught on our own pathwork and journey, we can get very myopic. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes when we get myopic, it's because we're working very fundamentally on a lesson that we haven't navigated through yet, right? Like if you get caught on doing something, sometimes you get so focused on it that you can lose sight of the energy around it. So a little bit of this energy right now, there's healing that's happening in separation via the perspective, right? Sometimes if you're too close to the painting, you can't see something. But when you step back, you get a little distance from something, things start to make a little bit more sense. And so we see a little bit of this energy that's happening right now as a possibility of working in separation right now. So I'm going to say it even now. If you're feeling alone right now in separation, talk about it. Share it. Don't let it isolate you. Don't let the energy of isolation isolate you. Let it propel you forward in the expression of how you're energetically feeling. Continuing to get clarification between our Tower card in its reversal in combination with our Temperance in its reversal. So this is a little bit of this these two cards together. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. This card should look familiar. We've got a lot of the same cards that we pulled yesterday. This was our center spread yesterday. Queen of Swords back. Now look what we see is happening. Do you see a little bit of this energetic change here? Masculine energy starting the day, a little feeling put out, a little frustrated, building into emotional stability with feminine. How is the masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, building forward into stability with feminine and separation right now by expressing their emotionality. Right? And that's not the masculine energy that's projecting out and being like, nah! No, this is the masculine energy that's articulating through your own doubts, your own fears. When we talk about the things that we are afraid of, instead of acting upon them, we build a bridge for others to find us, right? When we are able to express our own insecurities in a way that we do not project them out on others, we build a rope that can pull us out of our own doubts and fears. And so we see even now that a lot of this energy, look at these two, they're weaving together, right? And some of this work right now, masculine, speaking towards their own space of looking back on past version of self, saying, I've got a lot of notes for that version. I've got a lot of notes. I'm no longer that person. I see things in different ways. I hold a lot of grief. I hold a lot of regret. Congratulations. Did you think you were going to go on a spiritual journey and you weren't going to get to hold on to grief and regret? The more you go on the spiritual journey, the more grief and regret you're going to have to hold. I know that stinks, but it's just the way it is. Because you're mindful, you're conscientious. You're not moving in a space of righteousness. You're moving in a space of consideration for yourself and those around you. And so we see even now what is happening with these energies in separation. They're conscientious. Because they're not just thinking about themselves, but they're thinking about the wider whole. They're thinking about the energy around them. They're thinking about the impact of their own energetic actions. They're thinking about the expansiveness. And so we see even now that these are energies that via the articulation of expressing their own doubts and fears, they're not amplifying them. They're giving each other that gift of compassion. They're giving each other that reminder that that burden is not something that they themselves are carrying and carrying only, but it is something that is shared. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, this is the energy that is feeling if this is energy that was working so fundamentally, and we saw this ever since the eclipse cycle, this is some energy that thought that they weren't necessarily going to be able to pull their act together. There's some energy here. There's some energy here that we saw during the eclipse cycle coming into divine union right now that really wasn't sure if they were going to be able to fix something here. And so we're seeing even now that ability of doing so, that ability of feeling the result of the rigor, and the ability of saying to one another that when we prioritize partnership and we become adaptable and we are conscientious of each other, we can reinforce and create that which we would desire to have between us. This is the energy that is feeling the power of the energetic connection, because it doesn't just feel like it's happenstance. It feels like it's been forged together, right? Like it's not perfect, but it's ours, is what I'm hearing right now for a lot of that energy moving deeper into divine union at this time. While for masculine and feminine, and that sense of, again, like what happens when we love something. It's not perfect, nor would I ever desire it to be, because it's mine, right? The imperfection, the beauty of the imperfection that creates the sense or space of uniqueness. While for masculine and feminine energy that is deep within divine union right now, this is energy that's very much in that same similarity. The only difference here is there's more of that time that is come into being, where this is the energy that has learned one another to such an extent that they're almost able to understand and recognize the, like I want to say, being there before one even needs to articulate it, right? Like being able to just kind of move into that modality, being able to kind of work in that fashion. And we see even now, this is feminine really channeling through a lot of their frustration via the immediate energetic action. This is masculine working more in that space of emotional balance, creating the emotional support system that the feminine needs. So you see even now, these energies are not moving together. They're not just lockstep. They're acting as counterparts. Continuing to get clarification between our Temperance card in its reversal in combination with our Seven of Cups in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. I like to see this. I want everybody, listen, if you're having heavy energy right now, if you're feeling very heavy energy, I want you to just focus on your manifestation goals. Manifestation goals. And again, this is my rule for today. All right, this is my rule. For every negative thought you have, I want you to replace it with a positive one. And that's not being dumb. That's not, and I don't mean that in like a delulu kind of way. I don't mean that in like a fanciful way. I mean, find a way to take that into a space of energetic purpose wherein it feels like it is practical, wherein it feels like it is productive. Not like creating that, like, not telling oneself like everything is energetically fine. Say, this is what I'm going to do to make something energetically finer. This is what I can do to take some of that energetic weight off. This is what I can do to move something into a space where I'm not building into the anticipation of what could be possible. I'm moving in the direction of what I desire to create for myself and those around me and the world at large. Now, for masculine and feminine, like, let it become a point of energetic productivity. While for masculine and feminine deep within divine union, this is the gift that I see that the energy is creating for one another at this time, which is, again, what happens in that space. It's not that anything's energetically perfect, but while we navigate in that way of articulating what those anxieties are, help is on the way, right? That's the partnership. That is the modality of saying that the anxiety expressed is the confidence that can be lended, is the advice that can be given. It is the support that can be proceeded forward. All you have to do is ask, right? It's a lot of that type of energy that we see right now within divine union. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, what's funny about this is there's more argumentation here, because these are the energies that are learning and working on finding those ways of being energetically adaptable when they have different desires. This is a problem when you're coming into divine union. Like, let's express it. We all have things that we want. We want the things that we want the way that we want to have them. So in a way, when you're coming into divine union, you stop being so precious. You just stop being so precious about what it is that you desire and aspire, because you're prioritizing something greater, right? But this is an energy that feels like they're doing so from some kind of grand act of sacrifice. This is an energy going like, oh no, like, no, this is energy that builds upon the joy that they create with one another, right? It's the happy medium that becomes the place of joy, because that sense or that space of creating something that is the modality of what you bring together, what you both bring towards one another. There might be a moment where you're like, I wouldn't do it that way, but now that I see it, like, it kind of works. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit of that type of energy here that is like the beauty of the messiness that occurs when you allow someone into that space of energetic intimacy. So we see a little bit of that energy here, feeling a modality of separation, because even in the argumentation of what something is, it is the amplification of what already exists. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in separation, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now in separation, this is bittersweet. This is bittersweet because I see a lot of energy right now in separation saying to themselves, I'm better now, right? And why is the energy saying I'm better now? Is that the energy that says, oh no, like, and I can see even now energy being like, I'm better now, because they're like, I got it. Like, is this the energy that says like, I'm better now? And here, and this is what is difficult about that journey, right? Because we see even now that something has been gathered and learned in separation that feels like it's energetically beneficial. For feminine, there could be a lot of work right now in building towards those energetic standards, not being so adaptable. But this is a lot of the energy that faces and recognizes that there may be a lot of partnerships we have to move away from if it requires us to move further away from ourselves in the process. So that's why we see even now a lot of the feminine energy in separation moving in a way that they feel much more slow, because this is the energy in separation saying, my adaptability is a gift. My adaptability is a gift for an energy that prioritizes the energetic connection of what we're building together. That sense of the feminine energy being generous, right? Being adaptable. This is the feminine energy that says I am, and this is the journey. This is the beautiful journey that we saw that occurred between the Scorpio and the Taurus energy. That sense of the feminine holding their own adaptability as a point of preciousness. This is not the feminine energy moving towards masculine in a way that they're withholding. This is the feminine energy that knows themselves and is focusing and prioritizing their manifestation goals with masculine, right? This is feminine protecting that manifestation goal. While for masculine, what we're effectively seeing is for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, some of this work that is so fundamental is trying to build forth the feminine in an authentic way. And it feels hard because I feel like the masculine's shedding those layers of the self, being authentic about how they feel and what they desire. And with that affirmation of saying to themselves, if something about my articulation of manifestation goals moves feminine away from me in the ability of articulating it, that is not rejection. That is energetic protection. Continuing to get clarification between our King of Cups and our Seven of Cups in its upright. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Cups in its reversal. So we see even now, and this has to do with a little bit of that emotional volatility that we're recognizing here that is a little bit frustrating. Remember, we're talking so much about the feminine energy that is frustrated to a certain extent, but also working through that frustration in positive ways. This is the energy right now that both of these energies are working in this way, but it's bringing forth different things in them. And feminine, this is the feminine that almost feels frustrated as they have to come towards masculine in this way, because this is the feminine saying, I would prefer not to have these shields. I would prefer not to have to be energetically conscientious and cautious. This is the feminine going, the path of wisdom has taught me to be conscientious for the sake of recognizing the value of the energy that prioritizes me versus the energy that does not, right? And so we see even now, like that's a little bit of the feminine energy that navigates in that way, because it feels like a lot of the emotionality that feminine is channeling into what feels like it's productive. But even in that space, the masculine, feminine seeing the masculine that is appreciative of those boundaries. Like what happens in the moment that the feminine holds an energetic boundary and the masculine says, I understand and appreciate why I'm finding you here. I understand and appreciate that it's because you care about something. You care about yourself. You care about what you're trying to build forth. And so we see even now like a lot of that work that occurs here. This is a lot of the energy of the feminine that feels the relief and release of a masculine that does not take the feminine's energetic boundaries personally. Right? While for masculine, the same being true in the sense of the masculine working in that modality of feeling those experiences where masculine was our authentic sense of self, but too late. The masculine working through that pathwork of saying, were those moments that I was rejected by feminine because the feminine rejected my authenticity of emotions? Or was it because I gave them a false sense of self every step of the way? Every step I became closer to a feminine, I showed them a false version of me. And it was when my authenticity was revealed that they ran from me. This is the masculine learning and saying the emotionality isn't the thing that the feminine is afraid of. It is the false sense of self that moves me in the direction of the feminine that is not in alignment to me. So we see even now, like this is the masculine learning to let that armor down to build the healthy connection while the feminine's trying to keep hers up. Continuing to get clarification, masculine and feminine coming into divine union. This is why so much of this feels like energetic unpacking. It's triggering. Because for the energy moving deeper into divine union, being able to sweat over the details, working through those small things as something is energetically coming together, it's triggering and reminding them of all those spaces where they never necessarily even got to reach at that point. Like that's that moment. This is sometimes those retrogrades. It makes you feel a little disoriented because you're like, it's reminding you of those spaces where something could have been but wasn't because you weren't with someone. It's reminding you of those spaces where something could have been but wasn't because you weren't with someone in the context that they were ready to receive that or work with you in that way. While for a lot of this energy deep within divine union right now, I told you, the only thing that I see right now in divine union, masculine's feeling very emotional. And feminine's like, I don't have time to be emotional. Feminine's like, I just gotta work. Feminine's being much more practical right now. So this could lead to a little bit of energetic frustration between like the masculine being in a modality of being very emotional and open today, and feminine being much more driven. Continuing to clarification between our Seven of Cups and our Queen of Swords, and it's upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Knight of Swords. Again, if this card looks familiar, these two, you remember, look, they're still stuck together today. Go to my Substack over on graystrega.substack.com. You'll see the photo of yesterday's spread. Yesterday's spread, Queen of Swords, and it's upright, center of the spread. Who is right next to the Queen of Swords? Same card. Knight of Swords in its reversal. Counterpart energies don't need to be in the same modality because they lend support in the ways that they didn't need the other needs. So masculine may be feeling more emotionally more emotional today, more in that space of addressing their own emotional needs. Feminine being much more practical today. While for a lot of this energy right now, but this is okay because the counterparts recognize that they step forward when the other one needs to step back for a minute. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union is learning how to do this. And it's frustrating. Like I can see the energy being like, it's frustrating. But even in that modality, it feels, and this is a little bit of that retrograde energy coming to the surface, it can hearken back to experiences that may have felt triggering because it reminds you of the trauma that may have led to that difficulty in being able to form that energetic union in the first place. So we see even now, these are the energies that are learning a new way of working with one another through details. But even in the agonizing of details, they've recognized that they've accomplished something because they're no longer arguing about like what the energy of the partnership is. They're arguing about the details of it, right? While for masculine and feminine energy and separation right now, these are new. This is a lot of new, I want to say a lot of new connections that are forming right now. And I got to say, a lot of these connections, like, I know this doesn't look like it right now. I know that you see this and you go, these are not good counterparts. I'm like, yes, these are the best counterparts. They're not fighting with each other with the swords. You see that? They're not battling, right? Feminine, it's like feminine is being more like energetically protective. Masculine's being more in that space of emotionality, because that's the energy that, again, recognizes that they're not trying to just match energy. They're finding what they need in the building forth of the connection. And it feels like a release and a relief, because this is the energy that is unpacking like what they've experienced in the past, that's giving them those new perspectives. Continuing to get clarification between our Queen of Swords in combination with our Ten of Cups in its upright. One card to clarify. Four of Wands. This is why the energy in separation, this is triggering, because I just see a lot of this energy right now. Like, it's like wound cleansing. It's like talking about, like, I see a lot of the energy being like, I need to stress to you, I don't want to be here. Like, this is the energy that I see, and I don't mean that, right? I need to stress this, you understand? I mean that in the sense of the energy, when you have a manifestation goal, right? And you're trying to build forth in a connection with someone, it's not that sense of saying, this isn't making me happy. It's saying that I would prefer something else, right? I would prefer, and this is the energy, look what they're doing, this energy in separation that's finding each other. Not only are they talking about what they desire with one another, they're talking about those sad stories wherein they tried to create that with someone else and it did not result in the way that they hoped it would be, right? There's frustration here. It's triggering, because there's a lot of this energetic unpacking that I see that's happening here in the articulation of what one experienced or what one found, as opposed to what one hoped for. But this isn't the energy that looks back and says, oh, it was all that person's problem. It was all them. It was all them. This is the energy that is introspective on the way. This is the feminine saying, yeah, I should have maybe potentially, I recognize that I should have had better boundaries back then, right? Masculine saying, I should have shown a more authentic version of self, right? And that's not the energy. That's the energy that's doing that work of understanding what is within the self to change versus what was outside of the self to experience. So there's a lot of this clarity that we see that is occurring in these energetic connections, and can almost see the energy saying to one another, it sounds to me like you're being a little hard on yourself, right? Like, that's the energy that's like finding each other. It's in the modality of someone saying, it sounds to me like you're being a little hard on yourself there. Getting perspective, continuing to get clarification. Queen of Cups, Knight of Swords. See how these conversations could be a little bit triggering? Are these energies reacting to one another? No, they're experiencing the expansion point and being able to navigate a trigger, but not letting the past define them, letting the past refine them. Here's that solitude I talked about that's coming to the surface right now with that Hermit energy. Energy with this type of density, it can feel isolating if you let it. If you let it. Hear what I just said. If you let it. There's a difference between saying to oneself, I feel isolated. If you feel isolated right now, I want you to say it to someone. I want you to say it, because you know what you're going to potentially meet? Someone saying, me too. Right there with you. I feel it too, right? Because that type of energy, that stagnation point, sometimes that modality, a little bit of this retrograde energy, if you're navigating in a positive way, you might want to articulate to someone, be like, I'm not really feeling like doing anything like, but if you're not, it may feel too oppressive. It may feel very overwhelming. So we always want to be conscientious when we see some of this Hermit energy appearing, because how this affects or impacts the self, it's going to hit different for different people, right? Well, for masculine and feminine energy right now, that ability of doing so, this is the energy I told you, trying to find the happy medium. This is the energy in those modalities of argumentation, and it feels a little frustrating, because this is the energy that's learning and building into an energetic connection where it's like, oh, if I'm doing so, I can't always be in that space of being energetically happy, right? Because that ability of finding that space that is the happy medium is the energetic relationship. Like that's the energetic relationship. But this is the energy that doesn't feel like doing so moves them away from their highest version of self. This is the energy that's finding themselves in the process because they're like, yeah, like it's not a priority. It's not that big a deal, right? Like this is the energy that may be looking at the past self that was like my way or the highway, and being like that's why you were on the highway. That's a little bit of that work that feels that sense of doing so. It's bringing them closer to themselves in the process. While for masculine and feminine, deep within divine union right now, I feel like there's a little bit of this frustration for the energy deep within divine union that feels a little bit like you can't please everybody. Like you can't please everybody. There's so much of that we're seeing here that is the amplification and the articulation of feeling that sense of clarity in partnership that helps one see oneself more clearly, right? And I can see even now that a lot of the energy deep within divine union, like that's that ability of saying to one another, you light the way. Because this is the energy that doesn't say you light the way in terms of saying you tell me what to do. It's the energy that says when I speak to you, I can see myself more clearly, right? Continuing to get clarification between our Knight of Swords and its reversal in combination with our Four of Wands and its reversal. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Cups in its upright. So for a lot of this energy deep within divine union right now, that ability of, again, and I need to stress this again, like, do you remember what I said? When we speak about our loneliness, instead of letting it embody us, we build a bridge. When we speak about our isolation, instead of allowing the isolation to make us feel isolated, we build a bridge, right? So there's a lot of this work that we're potentially seeing that's occurring right now in the retrograde period that can feel like it can feel a little stifling if you're not ready for it, right? It can feel a little oppressive. I want you to if you're feeling it like that in that way, I want you to articulate upon it, right? Because that is that moment that says that the things that we feel within, when expressed without, when we do so from a place of authenticity, we allow that ability of a bridge to form. And sometimes it's hard because I see even now, like some of this energy here, like this retrograde might be having to have conversations about things that are hard to talk about, right? But even here, like that ability of doing so for the energy in deep within divine union, this is the energy re-amplifying and saying, when I feel lost and I talk to you about my lostness, I talk to you about my energetic loneliness, you help me find the way. And this isn't the energy saying, this is the direction you go in. This is the energy saying, you give me the light, you give me the clarity of perspective. You help me see beyond that myopic perspective of how I'm focusing. We give each other light by giving each other perspective. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that are coming into divine union, this is the energy looking back at the self and being like, you prioritize the self. There's a little bit of this energy going, I've got some notes for that past version of self, because this is the energy that feels like, yes, this is the energy that doesn't feel like they're losing the self, right? They're not losing themselves in moving into an energetic connection. They're finding themselves along the way. But some of that finding is the giving of the self to the partnership. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this is a lot of energy, having those difficult conversations, ripping the Band-Aid to a certain extent. But sometimes the only way you can cleanse a wound is if you rip the Band-Aid off of it, right? It hurts. Yeah, it hurts. But sometimes something has to hurt to heal. And so I see even now a little bit of this energy saying, I can see the energy almost saying in separation, I'm sorry if you don't want to talk about this. And the energy going, this is the moment of healing. Look at this. You see the moment of healing? Someone saying, it doesn't hurt. Like, it's not that it doesn't hurt anymore, but the energy is saying it doesn't hurt anymore because I get perspective in looking at it. I get perspective in seeing it. There's light emanating from the energetic wound. Final card for today's spread, between our Hermit card in combination with our Nine of Cups and its upright. Can I just point out here, we've got double nines because the Hermit card is also a 9 card. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the Hierophant in its reversal. When we allow ourselves to take a different perspective on things, it allows us to have a different approach. And so a lot of this is a lot of that conversation that we are having right now in relationality to Pluto moving into Aquarius, right? And that has to do with like navigating the space of the unknown, navigating the space of the uncertainty, right? What do you do with an energetic problem? Do you just power through and choose to ignore it? Or do you move into that space of taking an unconventional approach, allowing oneself an ability to see something in a way that you haven't before? Now, for masculine and feminine, deep within divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now, this is the energy that is building forth and taking unconventional approaches in relationality to how, like to a lot of that. I want to describe this as their own sense or their own space of how they heal one another, right? So this is the energy within divine union that says, I love you, because it doesn't feel like a stagnant thing. It feels like something that we create together. That sense or that space of love is one that's constantly changing, constantly forming, constantly moving into that modality of serving the need that is never there, because we make the choice of arriving to one another in the way that the other needs us. And that doesn't move us away further from who we are. It brings us closer to who we desire to be. While for masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now, this is the energy that I can see the energy being like, I didn't expect it to feel like this. I can see a lot of energy moving into divine union going, I didn't expect it to feel like this. I thought it would feel a lot more stable. Like, this is a lot of the energy going, I thought it would feel a lot more stable. Where is your manager? Where is your manager? I would like to, there's a little bit of that energy here that is like, I was looking at something wrong, right? Because this is a lot of that energy that's feeling the difference between this is what's hard. This happens sometimes. This happens, okay? What we desire to manifest and how it actually feels, very different things. Some things feel good up here, but what you expect them to be when you're there, very different. So there's a lot of energy right now that's moving into their manifestation goal and going, I didn't expect it to feel this way. Again, Scorpio, Taurus, the discomfort, that's funny. So there's a little bit of that energy here. While for masculine and feminine in separation right now, a lot of that work or a lot of that focus that we're seeing to a certain extent, I just keep hearing, I keep hearing, I can never go back. I don't desire, and it's in that, there's that modality that I'm seeing here, and this is what's positive for some of these energetic connections. It's the unpacking of something, the ability to articulate and speak on something that amplifies the step away from something, right? Because this is the energy says, I can talk about it because I'm no longer there. I can speak towards it because I'm looking at it from an outside perspective. I'm no longer dwelling within it. I've got enough energetic perspective that I can see it more clearly. So there's a lot of energy right now in separation. I know that feels kind of counterintuitive, but they're ready to come into commitment right now because they recognize that they've reached a closure point in past energetic connections. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is the world in its reversal. Again, less than ideal circumstances. Again, we started the reading here. A lot of this energy being less than ideal circumstances, right? For masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, I keep on hearing the energy being like, you caught me at a really weird time. That's usually the best time, right? Because here's that Mercury retrograde to knock you out of your groove, and the energy being like everything's going wrong. And the energy of the retrograde says, wait. Like, you have to give, like, it's not about, like, not building into that sense of saying everything's going wrong, but saying anything is possible, right? We always want to get hard in the retrograde, be like, everything's going wrong because of the retrograde. And the retrograde sits there and goes, or anything's possible, right? Let that kind of like build that support for you right now. Now, for masculine and feminine coming into divine union, a lot of this energy coming into divine union, I literally see is disoriented. Like, they're disoriented. They're disoriented because the modality of arguing or sweating over the details of a thing feels like such a departure from arguing about whether something exists or not. Like, this is the energy that's feeling the disorientation point, because it's the energy saying, I didn't expect it to feel like this, right? So even here, a little bit more of that sense or space. Well, for masculine and feminine, deep within divine union right now, there's a lot of this energy that we're seeing that is requiring that path work to a certain degree in recognition of what is within one's own power to change versus what is outside of the self. And so we see even now, like, navigating that point of frustration. This is the energy that tries to overcorrect. This is the energy that's always trying to look for a way to fix something. Like, this is the energy within divine union that feels the energetic frustration. Because in those modalities of feeling the sense of like what is within one's own power to change within partnership, it's something that you want to bring further out and extend beyond oneself. But feeling that sense of frustration in doing so, like a lot of that here, like, this is what I mean about like that frustration point that moves us into a state of empowerment. And for feminine right now, I see like that's a lot of that work and not letting yourself feel energetically overwhelmed by what's around you. Let it build further into that space of recognizing what is integral. While for masculine right now, a lot of that work that I'm energetically seeing is building into that space of remembering that even in that modality of like what you can do, like embracing a little bit of that unknown, it's not necessarily a bad place. It can also be a positive space. Don't rest on hope. Move upon it. Don't rest on hope. Move upon it. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind that if you book a private reading, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. Also, a couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended our recent tarot class. Our next tarot class will be held on Wednesday, December 18th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the Strength card. If you would like to become a part of that tarot class program, all you need to do is head over to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack is your ticket of entry into our live class each month. It will also grant you access to all of the course materials and recordings for our previous classes. So if you've missed any up until this point, you haven't missed anything. It's all available to you. Now, it's not required to catch up before our next class. I will be giving summaries on everything that we've studied thus far, but the material is there for when you're ready to receive it. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything that we've learned thus far. And if you are become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, you will also receive a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, wherein I will assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage going forward to reach your own personal tarot goals. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. So I want to thank you if you're just joining us there, and I look forward to seeing you at our next class if you're just joining us. Also, if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, be sure to head over to our subscriber-only Discord channel, because there you will find a special coupon code that will give you an additional discount on that Substack subscription. Even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings, services. I post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my live in-person events as well as my online schedule. You'll also have access to our giveaway information. Speaking of giveaways, we are in the process of having our giveaway for a free tarot reading with me. If you are interested in joining that giveaway, simply head over to the link tree in my bio. There is a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that travel survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway. But if you would like to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I'll be gifting a reading not only to the person that wins, but also to the person that referred them. Finally, I want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These classes are for my clients that are seeking a more personalized experience of learning with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series. That is 4 45-minute readings, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.